We thank our women's chorus today, and especially for that song. As I was listening, I was thinking of the moments when women's power showed up, not only recently, but in times like in Chile, when they held up signs of the missing young men who were in prisons, and the grandmothers were silent, holding their grandchildren's pictures, and also at the borders in Palestine. I always think of that great story of the women who leveraged their presence to speak to the border guards in Israel to soften their responses to the Palestinians crossing the border into Israel. So thank you for that and that reminder. I read a story in a colleague's book, my colleague James Ford's book. It's called "If You're Lucky, Your Heart Will Break." It's a good title for a day like today. It's not a story about a mother. It's about a man in Cincinnati in the 1990s during a particularly difficult time with homelessness. He talks about how panhandlers would set up out at ATMs and kind of harangue the customers. And one night he goes to the ATM, and a bearded man, draggled and messy clothes, in his 60s or older, comes up to him and asks him, "Young man, do you have any money for dinner?" They were always asking, and the young man was tired of this. He thought any money he gave them would go to liquor. He replied curtly, "No, I don't." To which the homeless man replied, "Well, for God's sake, get yourself something," and stuffed a $5 bill in his pocket. There are two lessons here. One is it's not always about you, and two is that encounters like this can open us up, create earthquakes in our lives, throw us into the chaos of life. And both of those lessons are Mother's Day lessons. For one, it's not all about you. Whether you're a child or a mother, have no mother you know of, don't like the mother you have, or whatever your situation, birth is a gift. Out of a mother's body we come. And we should cultivate some level of gratitude for that at least. And as a parent, we must know that when we birth or help create a person, that person is not ours. It's not about you. And the second lesson is that there's no better example of being thrown into the chaos of life than being birthed, pushed into the world to fend for ourselves. There is no other way, in fact. And we should learn that pretty early in life, not wait until we are motherless to know this. The gift of being birthed means we are sent into an unexpected chaos. And while mothers are there to protect some of us, every one of us must make meaning of our lives independent of those who are around us. All that said, I know that this day isn't simple for those of you who are here, for us. It's a day of joy, but it's also a day of pain. It's a day of celebration, but it's also a day of longing and grief. Some women and their partners or spouses here are yearning to have their first child, and some are wondering why they had children at all. Some children here had bad mothers. Some good moms are grieving a wayward child. Many women here have lost or ended pregnancies and live with the soul-wrenching what-ifs that linger for a long time. Some here never knew their mothers and never wanted to know their mothers. Some never wanted to let go and have lost them all the same. And some are just mothers sitting next to their children. All this is good news. This moment's creative, cognitive, spirit-filled dissonance allows us to take a breath and know that when we look around this sanctuary, all the experiences of life are here. All the hopes and all the grief, every permutation of life's chaos in every form is here in this room today. And knowing that should change us this morning. The fact that some are here in pain should make those here in joy feel empathy all the more. The fact that some are here in joy and celebration should make those in pain lift their gaze from their own sorrow and see that life can be hopeful and hope-filled. The complications of this day are not easily explained, but they are what we have. And it amazes me that we can come together and in some way heal our hearts and minds and laugh at our human condition and clumsiness and the trouble we get into, and can do it together because we are a church, a people trying to make sense of all this. That's why I love the film Lady Bird, created by a Unitarian Universalist from our Sacramento UU church, right? Scott was the intern there. About a mother-daughter relationship that drove far into the deep end of parent-child complexity. One of the great mother-daughter scenes in the history of film is that opening scene we saw earlier. They're driving down the road, enjoying a book on tape, and in a few minutes it moves from tender sharing and crying together to advice giving, to argument, to insult, to the daughter throwing herself out of the car. How many of us would have wanted to do that at one point in our life? The film explores the squashing of dreams, the practicalities of growing up, the mistaken words we say to one another, the power of a mother over a child and a child over a mother, and how attitudes and signals change us. Lady Bird's relationship with her mother, Marion, can be aggressive and confrontational in one moment and quietly sweet in the next. Lady Bird and her mother have an unending capacity to wound each other because of how deeply connected they are. In one scene in the dressing room near the end of the film, Lady Bird tries to pick out a prom dress. Lady Bird cries out as she's trying on this dress, "It's too tight!" And she yells an expletive I won't say here in church. Her mother replies, "Well, I suggest that you not have that second helping of pasta." And then her mother pauses, sensing she may have said something wrong, and says, "Honey, you seem upset about that. I'm just trying to help." Lady Bird yells out, "You're giving me an eating disorder." Finally, she emerges in a pink, sparkly dress, and she says to her mother, "I love it," to which her mother replies, "Is it too pink?" And on it goes. They learn and they love and they struggle with each other and they challenge decisions, while in an odd way they intertwine their lives tighter and tighter for the good of both of them. Maybe the film is more passive nudges than earthquakes, painful disruptions, lessons learned. In the scene that follows the pink dress remarks, Lady Bird asks sincerely of her mother, "Why can't you say I look nice?" And her mother replies, "I thought you didn't even care what I think." "I'm sorry," she says, "I was just telling the truth. Do you want me to lie?" "I just wish," Lady Bird says, "I wish that you liked me." "Of course I love you," her mother says. "But do you like me?" Lady Bird asks. Her mother pauses and then says, "I want you to be the very best version of yourself that you can be." "What if this is the best version of myself?" she says. The scenes are heartbreaking and heartfelt. An entire relationship captured in a look of concern on Marion's face when she realizes that Lady Bird might just be the best version that she will ever be, and that her job is to accept that. Earthquakes, disruptions, lessons. I thought about the lessons I learned from my mother, because I read someone who said the first thing they learned was to be ready for the unexpected. This writer said, "Mom told us we will not always be in control of our lives. The things will happen we did not plan for and did not want to happen, but still we have to deal with them. Be ready was her lesson to us. Barbara Brown Taylor, the spirituality and religion writer of this, said, I set out to be married and ended up divorced. I set out to be healthy and ended up sick. I set out to live in New England and ended up in Georgia when I was 30. I set out to be a parish priest. Almost 13 years later, I taught school. Be ready was a lesson she learned from her mother. I'd say if you learned that or not, it was probably a good thing your mother could have taught you. So I asked my siblings, I have 3, what they learned from our mother as an exercise for today. Interestingly, out of the 4 children, 1 didn't reply at all to the question. 1 is in a divorce and trying to be a good mother herself and didn't get back to me, and she's forgiven. And 1 gave me some notes, which I have added to and simplified. And we think our mother taught us this, that social justice is something you do, not something you believe in. That the arts are important, and especially literature and plays, that cooking real food, especially food that is from our heritage, is important and fun. That standing up against racism is one of the most important things someone can do. That pretend games with children are one of the best uses of time, and that we can often do something we didn't even think we could do. Lessons from our mother. Those are positives. But as I reflected, I also know that I learned some challenging things that I had to wrestle with in my own way. And each of my siblings might have a different list, but mine also includes that family is important but can be extremely painful. That a certain level of sacrifice of one's own passions can cause incredible rifts in the soul. And that being judgmental might seem normal, especially when you spend time denying it. I know it's not in fashion to criticize what your mother taught you on a Mother's Day sermon, but it's honest. I can say that I received so much from my mother. I am grateful. And I've also had to unravel the lessons, the glances, the things I didn't even know I was learning, the earthquakes, the disruptions, the mother's hopes for me and my own failings. And as of yet, I haven't thrown myself out the car door while she was driving. Yet. The main spiritual question in all this is, can we be grateful today? Can this be a day of thanksgiving for life and mothers and all that entails without sugarcoating it? Can this be a day that no matter your situation, that you can say thank you for mothers in your life? I would hope so. I think it's a kind of Thanksgiving in May, even with all the complexities and the pain or the joy in this reflection. It's a Thanksgiving recorded in our hearts, which has a primordial prayer that calls us to each say that we love our mothers, those who gave us birth or those who gave us life, or both. Or at best, we might hear the commandment to honor our mothers because they gave some piece of themselves to bring us into the world. Can we muster the appropriate gratitude for the glances and the mistaken choice of words and the love and the pain and the lesson and the earthquakes and the disruption all together and have it break us open? It's not that we're looking for atonement today. We're not atoned by a card or a flower given or hope to give to a mother. It's that there's spiritual work of true gratitude today. For some piece of us to let go, to open up, to embrace those who gave us life. And in that Thanksgiving, we might utter that prayer that goes simply, for all that we have received, dear God, make us truly grateful, the kind that makes us our love unguarded, raw and honest. Make us grateful so that it shatters the protective layers of our hearts and shows us love that abides in all of us. May that be the Mother's Day gift that changes us today. An open heart, an open embrace of all of the pain and the joy, the earthquakes, the disruptions, the nurturing, and the love that we find. A good Mother's Day to you all. Don't throw yourselves out of a car today. Be well. Amen.